book, illustrations for a book. I mentioned then, I'll repeat it briefly, in my 50-year career of being an illustrator, I've been asked to illustrate scores of books. Until now, I've done exactly one. This would be the second one. That's all I'm going to say about that. Let me show you some of the work that I did last time, bring us up to speed. So I was working just for fun in one of my sketchbooks. It's kind of fun. These here are sketches that I did for another project a year or two ago. And this is some of the work that I did for the current project, The Way of Men with Maids. And you can go back and watch me do this if you want to. I was using mostly this tool, a fat graphite lead tool. I like it a lot. It's one of those things you find in an art store, and at least I looked at it and said, why would I ever want that? And then somebody gave it to me one time, and I thought, oh, I love it. So I've since bought 4 of them, I think. And I described my process as trying to draw faster than I can think. And I will demonstrate a little bit more of that today. What you're seeing, however, in the current iteration is after I ended the broadcast last time, I did, what's going to focus? Going to focus? Doesn't look like it. All right, sorry about that. I was hoping you could see some of I picked up a pen like this, and then no longer holding it side saddle, but holding it in the traditional manner, the control grip, I did details. At the moment, I have done 41 rough sketches of a couple. So that would be, if you will, 82 figures. So far, 41 sketches of a couple. And some of them, I've worked on this project off camera, of course. And hang on, let me see if I have a monitor yet. I do not. All right. I've done shading and details on a number of these. I won't count how many, but not on any of these. Yes, on this one. Can you see the difference? So this was my first iteration. This is my second. Big difference there. And I also worked on this one, as you can see. All right, so let me tell you a couple things that have happened. Let me find a picture I'm not too embarrassed of while I'm chatting. There are a couple things that have happened since our last broadcast. I'll just leave it there. Number one, let me switch to my face for a second. Number one, my friend Giff, who is the author of this book, has texted me a couple of times and given me direction. He saw my last broadcast. In fact, he edited it and posted it on X, I believe. Appreciate that very much, Giff. And he gave me feedback. So this is very, very, very typical of an illustrator's job. I do a bunch of quick sketches, and then the client gets back to me and says, and gives me feedback. So that's exactly what happened. And basically, what Giff said, and I'll go back here to the artwork at hand. He said it looks a little bit too much like, oh, isn't that a cute couple? So okay, so I have to interpret what in the world that means. And he sent me a couple AI. Let's pick on that one, for instance. He sent me a couple, I won't show you what he sent to me, he sent me a couple AI samples. And my language now, I think that what Giff wants me to do is create figures that are more animated. Now, this is very much my language, not him. If you're listening, or if you listen later, a little more Spider-Man, a little less, I'm trying to think of somebody that's more sedate. So a little bit more wham bam zowie, a little bit more comic, a little bit more energy. That's just the way to put it. So after getting that feedback, I did a new series of illustrations, which I will show you now and show Giff right now. So I think I did, I don't know how many, 6 or 8. 1, too, but you could see lots more energy. And I'm going to find out soon from Giff if I'm heading in the right direction. Lots more movement. Also, I don't know if we like this or not. This is very much, we can tweak this. The woman is further away. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. Here's one that is just, I haven't, do you see the difference between first iteration and second? Does that make sense? So first, pencil, side saddle grip, drawing faster than I can think. Second, really still drawing faster than I can think, but now with a control grip and a finer point. Sometimes I use a mechanical pencil, and sometimes I use a pen. All right, so I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, 6 rough sketches. But before I start doing any more of those, I want to show you what I do with the first series of illustrations that I did. For some reason, forgive me, I still am not getting indication that I am broadcasting. So I hope I am. Right, what you see here, this is a printed copy off my computer printer. Does that make sense? And what I did, so I use old technology, fingers, hands, and new technology, both. Here's another one. So I put this on my scanner, opened it in Photoshop, and then tweaked it. I think I remember, yeah, I can see a little bit of marks here. In this case, his arm was a little bit too long, a little bit too big. So I actually cut it in Photoshop, I cut out his arm, cut and paste, shrunk it down, and moved it down. So on many of these, that is what I have done. So I am employing, high tech, if you will, in combination with my old tech. But the next thing that I want, let's take this one just for example, and I think all of these that I scanned are off the table now according to Giff's latest feedback. But I want to show you, so why did I print it out? Here's why. You're going to find out in a second that I have, in fact, working on a light table. That means, and this is standard operating procedure for me, has been so for 40 years, 50 years maybe. So I turn the page over and look, voila. If I want to see a little bit better, I can turn off some of these other lights. Look at, all of a sudden, I have a mirror image. This is what the drawing looked like when I drew it. Maybe I tweaked this in Photoshop, I don't remember. I certainly gave myself permission to do so if I found any anatomical abnormalities, head too big, head too small, legs too long, legs too short, whatever, that kind of thing. And then I printed it. But the real key is now I can turn it over, and I'm using pencil again. And this is not only for this kind of illustration, but for portraiture, for any kind of drawing that has to be really accurate and correct, which of course is anytime you're doing the human figure. Anytime you're doing the human figure, are you listening to this? If there's any aspiring artists out there, are you listening? I'm not going to say this twice. That's a lie. I'm going to say it a whole bunch of times. But anyway, here it is. If you are working on something, look at it in a mirror. Let me say that again. I already told you I wasn't going to say it twice, and here I am saying it twice already. Look at it in a mirror. You'll probably have a stroke the first time, hopefully not, the first time you see your drawing in a mirror reflection. You go, oh man, I had no idea I was that far off. Are you listening to me? How do I know this? Listen, part of the reason I might be a better artist than you, might be, is because I've screwed up. more than you. I've made all these mistakes more than once. That's why I know they're mistakes. All right, so what I'm looking at now, through the paper, get it? This is the original drawing. Turn it over. Now it equals a mirror drawing. So if let me go back to what I said. If you're an aspiring artist and you want to get good at portraits or figures, and I'm not paying much attention to clothing right now. Just enough to get by. I'm more concerned that the figures be anatomically believable than I am concerned that they be clothed right. Giff and I will work on clothing a good bit, but at the moment I'm more concerned about attitude, style of face. When he first gave me this job several months ago when we were discussing it, he described the figures as a cross between anime and pre-Raphaelite. So that Sir Edward, you could just look it up. Pre-Raphaelite, spelled just like it sounds. That's a movement in England, in the art world. And while we're doing stuff, I'll go ahead and go back. I still don't have any monitor happening. This is concerning me more than a little bit. Having done shading with my pencil, I'll either take a blending stub or my finger. When you're doing real artwork, like artwork that's supposed to last for a while, you should never use your finger, because your finger has grease, has oil in it. That's acidic, and that acid will cause the paper to yellow in not very long time. We're not talking hundreds of years. We're talking less than a decade, and the paper will start to yellow. So you do not want to okay, again, can you see that face? And if I go closer a little bit. All right. Well, let me do a little bit more. Let's work on the woman just a little bit. And again, she is so rough. This is my fat pencil, and typically I hold it side saddle. She is so vague in her rendering that I don't even want to go to details yet. I want to go back to my more rough sketch. I don't like her mouth. And by the way, since my client Giff told me that we were doing a combination of anime and pre-Raphaelite, before I get too far, especially with the faces, I'm going to go out and do some research on anime faces to see how they do. I've seen them my whole life, but I've never studied them. And by the way, if you are a young artist, young is under 20, and I highly recommend do not draw in the style of anime. Why? Because it's cliche, because everybody does it, because it's not creative. Now you can be influenced by anime, but don't draw anime. You branch out and do something creative. All right, you can listen to my advice or not. You're going to do that anyway, aren't you? Or not? All right, so maybe I've done enough here just to indicate this trick that I just described. The trick is, with a light table, turning it over and drawing it through the back. So I'll stop that one right there. Let's go on now and look at some of the later illustrations that I did. My phone says I'm broadcasting, but my monitor has no indication of it yet. I'm so sorry to distract you with bad technology, with technical snafus. But I'll keep going. So these are the illustrations I did actually last night after I got my client's feedback. The impression I got from him is that he wanted more energy, more drama, perhaps a little bit more of an environment, stuff like, I haven't figured out yet if this is a tree or a stone column or a cast iron pole. I don't know what it is, but it's something, and I don't like it, but it's something that the man is hanging on to. Of course, as you can see, I mean, we're doing swashbuckling here. He's got a sword in his hand and a big cape. So, again, I'm trusting my client to give me direction. This is all very standard operating procedure. If my client gives me, in this case, feedback, then I respond to it and I do something, and then he's going to give me more feedback. All right, now this process can be quite frustrating sometimes, especially when the client is not a visually astute person, which is very often the case. This is not the case with Giff, because Giff is actually, Giff, I should have asked you, can people find your artwork under your pen name? I don't know. Anyway, he's a very decent artist on his own, so he will have no problem reading, what I call reading rough sketches. Some people cannot read rough sketches. They can only literally see what's on the paper and respond to it. All this messiness would completely throw them off, but that's not the case with you. All right, and now, I did not print this off. I didn't scan it, print it off, but I still can do what I did just a few minutes ago, and I'm going to just do a few minutes of this and then finish this broadcast. Am I making sense? Am I making sense? When I turn, so my eye is accustomed to look, even though I did this in 5 minutes or less. My brain is used to seeing it, accustomed to seeing it in this orientation. Does that make sense? So that when I now turn the page over and I see what is essentially a mirror image, my brain goes, I'm seeing it differently than it was earlier. And I'm not just tracing what's here, I'm making improvements and corrections. So I'm going to, and again, I don't know how well you can see this. I'm going to zoom you in as much as I can and let you watch me. I've noticed, by the way, that a number of the quick roughs that I've done for this job so far have featured an upward look at the man's nose and chin. Kind of interesting. And again, my client can respond to that and he'll say, nah, okay, why are we looking up his nose and up his chin? The answer is because we are looking up at the figure. We, the viewer, are down low looking up at him. And the reason for that is, and also I've got great big floppy hair on most of them. And, my client might come back to me and say, no, I don't really like the big floppy hair. Let's give him a haircut. And that's absolutely my client's prerogative. Does that make sense? But my job, coming out of the gate, so to speak, is just to create some. Wait. So let me make sure I'm seeing this right. My job is to create some provocative images. Some images, in this case, swashbuckling, robe flying out. Certainly you could use the word fantasy-like, or I don't know what the word is. And Giff also used the terminology not too Disney-esque. Now, I don't really know what he means by that. So, I would have to question him and say, what do you mean by that? What does Disney-esque mean to you? Because this looks pretty Disney to me, but we'll find out. And just a word for some of you, if you are a wannabe artist or illustrator, how does an artist charge financially? How do you estimate? I think I'm going to make this a tree. All of a sudden, I just decided. How do you decide? Well, one of the answers is Giff is paying me in stages, and the first stage is coming up with a general idea for the figures themselves, what they look like, who they look like, long hair, short hair, robe, canopy, cape. I mean, there's a word: cape, no cape, sword, no sword, smile, no smile. How anime-ish to make the eyes, because I do know that, anime, the eyes are very stylized. I don't think that my client Giff wants extreme anime eyes. I'm quite sure he does not. But somewhat. So there you go. So this is all, you could say, exploratory. Development would be the better terminology. We are developing the style of illustration and the style of clothing, style of hair, style of face, and mostly the action, the style, how much action. And as I have already indicated, my client Giff already said, gave me terminology that gave me to think that he wanted quite a bit more action than what I had given him. My first 35 sketches, it was pretty much just a man and a woman standing there, kind of posing for a photograph, because that's what I thought he wanted. And then he came back and said, no. And again, all of that is completely the client's prerogative. One of the challenges that us artists face is when we're working with someone who has not hired a skillful artist ever or much, is that sometimes those clients are they feel bad for not liking the sketch that we do, and that is completely unnecessary. No, that's what we're used to. That is what we're accustomed to. I think his leg might be a little short, but if it is, I will fix it in Photoshop. So here's sketch number 1. Oh, it's got black dots coming through. I don't like that very much. Here's sketch number 1, and there's sketch number 2. Does that make sense? Let's do just a little bit more, and then I will end this broadcast. Let me pick one of these that I like. So that one's wild. I think I like this one better. Yeah. Let's go with this one. Okay, so I'm going to turn this one upside down. Oh, and it has dots coming through too. But that's all right. And already, as soon as I see it upside down, I go, oh my goodness. So I can see my anatomy is a little bit off. This line, his side, rib cage, needs to come in a little bit. So I'm doing that right now. You see your imperfections, you see your irregularities. This thigh is a little bit short. I'm going to bring that leg out a little bit. By the way, in my last broadcast, I showed you one of my figurative sketchbooks. I pulled this one off the shelf just a few minutes ago. Here's a different one. Dan Nelson, Figure Studies, 2002. Can you believe that? So that's 24 years ago, mostly after George Bridgman. So one of the greatest teachers of anatomy drawing is the Students League of New York. He worked 100 years ago, George Bridgman, and I was going to grab his book, but I couldn't find it. And but this is an imitation of his work. In fact, not just an imitation. I copied. I want you to hear this. This is not from his book. I copied every single drawing in George Bridgman's book. Now that's the only book I've ever done that to. My next two would be Andrew Loomis and Jack Ham. I'll talk about those some other time. But 22 years ago, I remember so well copying George Bridgman, and it helped me so much in my figure drawing. Now, just looking at these reminds me of him. He has a very distinctive style. I could describe George Bridgman's style as he over-articulates or over-angulates the human figure, which is great because then it helps you. Here's a good example of that. Because then it helps you to learn to see the human figure. Does that make sense? Now, also, one thing that George Bridgman does right, again, in case there's any aspiring figure drawers out there, you need to learn the male first and the female second. Whew. And that's what George Bridgman does. Most figure drawing books focus on the apex, the zenith, the climax, the ultimate in human figure, which is the female figure. But in order to draw the human figure, you need to be able to draw the male. If you can draw a male figure, then you can draw a female. It doesn't go the other way around. If you know how to draw the female figure, you're lost as a goose, if I may be blunt. You're lost as a goose when it comes to drawing the male figure. So you have to learn the male first and then the female. I'm not even going to go any further into that. You don't have to believe me. I'm telling you the truth, but you don't have to believe me. And that's one of the things that George Bridgman does. All right, that's enough. So that's part of the reason I'm doing that is to explain how is it, and again, there are people out there, of course, that are way, way better artists than I am. Way, way better at figure drawing than I am. I can't even hold a candle to some people. But, I can do fairly well. And if there is any reason for that whatsoever, it's, as I said last time, it's because I have done my homework. And what the book I just showed you was homework. 22 years ago. I can't believe it. The work I showed you last time was from exactly 4 years ago, and I said at that time, just looking at that one, the book I showed you last time made me realize how much I need to do another blitz, if you will, do another series of figure drawing lessons. On my Pinterest page, and I should check on it and make sure that I can send you the link. I should include in my YouTube channel a link to my Pinterest page, because on my Pinterest page I have, I think, over 300 figure studies by other artists, and they're completely broken down into, of course, the whole figure. There's a whole series. There's a whole set of eyes, ears, nose, mouths, skulls, necks, shoulders, arms, hips, legs, torso, etc., broken down, and it's a veritable clinic on drawing the human figure. Again, that's on my Pinterest. I'll look and see if I can find that link, and I could put it what good artists have drawn. Skip the bad ones. Don't ever copy bad drawings. Just copy what you think are really, really, really good ones. The best. Don't waste your time drawing those that are not so good. That's all I'm going to say about that. All right, so there again, you see how I took this image and then turned it over and made several corrections. Having done it now in pencil, then I might come back even a third time now. Third being 1, pencil 2, and now ink 3. And again, each time I'm not slavishly copying what I've already drawn. I'm making changes. The changes are the important, the improvements. That's what's important. And I don't know if these guys are supposed to be, I don't know if they're supposed to be smiling with open teeth, open mouth, or not. I don't know. All right, I've blathered on long enough and more than long enough. Thanks for watching, if you're watching, and I hope to do another broadcast very soon, probably on this very same topic. Happy drawing to you. Bye-bye.